When I look at our history, I realize that our history is not negotiable. It's not defined by slavery. It is a profound history, and we need to teach it in honesty. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Erudition Network. Welcome to the Erudition Network. I am sorry that we are late here tonight. Had a lot going on today, a lot of things that were happening, but we are here, and I hope that we'll get some people here live. If not, we will have you have the recording, and you can go back and you can opine and make your comments then. I wanted to make sure that I did a show tonight to make sure that we talked about some things that are going on, but at the same time, the important thing that I think that we need to have to make sure that we have a show that is on every week is because there is so much going on that involves Black history that we need to talk about and go over so that we have a better understanding of what is going on in our world. My name is Eddie Phillips. If you're new to this program, this is the Erudition Network's interactive Black History and Knowledge session. This session is designed to teach Black history that has not often been taught, right? That has been either revision, erased, ignored. And so I get on every week with Erudition, and we talk about these historical things for your knowledge and for your understanding and for us to have a discussion. This is an interactive program so that you can discuss what you are hearing, what you don't agree with, what you have an opinion on, all of those things. So I'm here tonight for the next hour to go over these things with you. I would ask you, if you're watching the recording or whatever, to share this broadcast. Share it so that people can catch on to what we're doing here at the Erudition Network. Again, my name is Eddie Phillips, and I want to say thank you to all of those who are coming back and watching these episodes. I got a message this week, people asking where I'd been because there were some weeks that I had missed some episodes. So I am happy to do it, even if I have to do it late. Why? Because facts matter. History speaks for itself, but a lot of times we don't know what it's saying because we haven't been taught. And so the truth is always the foundation of what we try to do here on the Erudition Network. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, some things that have just happened within the last hour or so, and some other issues that have happened over the centuries, right? That's what this show is about. But I want to start first with the initial idea here. There are lies that are echoing through political stages, through our schools, on social media. People are lying about history. Either they're lying or they haven't been taught, right? But I like to believe that some history has been taught. And so a lot of people just decide to pick what they want to listen to. One of the things about it today is that the Republican Party of today is the same Republican Party that freed the slaves. We just had Juneteenth, and we had all of these people talking about how, we shouldn't have that holiday. We saw video after video of people talking about how they're not going to celebrate Juneteenth because they don't see it as a real holiday. And the Republicans saying, well, it's not racist because the Republicans are the people who freed the slaves to begin with. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. because that's some lunacy too. That's a revisionist history. We need to kind of touch on that. But it is not without the propaganda that we're seeing today. Tina, I see you here. Thank you for joining us. Sean Anthony, I see you too. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you are in the chat and I don't see it because you're on Facebook, hey, transfer on over to YouTube. Look for the Erudition Network on YouTube, and I will see your comments. If not, if you are still going to watch on Facebook, I will try to answer your comments once the program is over. When I'm on there, I should see your comments. But as of right now, we're still having some issues with Facebook providing us all of the interaction. However, getting back to what we're talking about. So I want to make it very clear to everybody that it is very truthful that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Okay, he was, and the Republican Party in the 1860s did help to lead the charge to abolish slavery. But if we believe that that's just the end of that story, then we're lying to ourselves. The truth of it is far more complicated, far more deeper than that. And the facts show that both parties, whether it be Democrat or Republican, were not so keen, even with the Civil War, to end slavery. Makes sense with all of the compromises that had been done to prolong slavery. So I want to deconstruct these lies tonight. I want to deconstruct the foolery that we hear from that, because it really is foolery. And it's a lie that keeps being pushed. It's a lie that we allow historians and people to put out here. One historian that I was reading he noted that the Republicans of the party were not calling for the abolition of slavery where it already existed, right? They weren't calling for racial equality. That was the understanding. Thus, because we want you to be free does not mean that we see you as equal. The goal for a lot of these Republicans was to stop the spread of slavery. This is why we had so many problems in Bleeding Kansas and other places. And in many of these early Republicans, that they called the Whigs, the Free Soilers, back in their day, they saw slavery as a threat. Right? They saw it as something that was morally wrong, but it also threatened the ability and the knowledge of whites. Let me explain that. As slaves were becoming more and more educated in how to do tasks, the people who were their owners and their drivers did not know these trades. This is why after the Civil War, when blacks went and built towns, established businesses, and they succeeded extremely well in the first 50 years post-slavery, a lot of whites were angry that they were doing so well. But the education came because the blacks were seen as a device. We forget that Lincoln himself had said he would not interfere with slavery in states where it existed. That is his beginning thought before the Civil War. And even when the Civil War started, Lincoln said that he would free the slaves or keep the slaves, if anything that he could do to keep the Union. So that lie, hey, what's up, nephew? Good to see you. That lie is huge, because that lie has kept us bound. In certain areas of this country, we're still telling ourselves these lies. We're still saying that the Republicans favored immediate emancipation and equal rights for black people, but that wasn't the truth. At the beginning of the Civil War, and even when secession began, ending slavery was not something that the North really cared to do because they had investment in slavery. Lincoln and other Republicans prioritized saving the Union over the slaves. If you don't believe that, look at Lincoln's own words, as I just said. And I'm going to quote to you exactly what he said. My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union. And it is not either to save or to destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do so. So when people are screaming this idea that we're the party of Lincoln, we're the party of Lincoln, you neglect the history that shows that even he wasn't fully on board. And even the most moderate Republican did not see slaves as equal, even thus freed. Yet, we have people out here on TikTok, on Facebook, everywhere during Juneteenth, these conservative people on these podcasts telling you these lies. These are lies. They expected, right, that slavery would eventually die. This was the other lie that was told. Oh, slavery will eventually die. We won't need it. Anything that you see as free, you're not going to be too willing to give over. If it's continually financing you, enriching you. And so the free soul Republican, that was his thought. Keep slavery out of the new states, but let's not force the South, which is feeding our economy, to get rid of their slaves. And then eventually, in 100 years, 200 years, or whatever, it'll go away. It'll stop. It won't be there. It's a lie. It's a lie. When the rank and file Republican of the time called himself an abolitionist, he wasn't calling for equality. He was simply calling for emancipation, freedom. Let them be free. We'll still keep their labor. When we look at Juneteenth and the order that was given by Granger, I state this many times as I talk about Juneteenth, and you can go back and look at EruditionNetwork's Juneteenth episodes that we did about 2 years ago, still relevant. It told them to stay in place. Oh, you're free, but stay in place to finish the crop. To make sure that this crop that is planted here in Texas can still be used. Even some of the abolitionists in the Republican Party of that time, right? They wanted to enforce discriminatory laws. They didn't want the slave to be able to be free and vote. We just wanted to free him, and then we would do slavery by another name. The idea of a voting and free Black person was not in their realm of thought. Not all of them. And they were against granting this. We find this historically. They were against granting freed slaves additional rights. What the leader, one of the original leaders of the Union Army, George McClellan, the one that Lincoln later fired, right? He was a commander. He was vehemently against emancipation. And if they were to be emancipated, they should not have rights. McClellan, when Lincoln came up for re-election, ran against Lincoln and had told the South he would make compromises So let's not tell ourselves this lie that the Republicans were just overwhelmingly the party to free, because that goes along with another lie that people tell, that white conservatives predominantly tell, that the white man was the one that eventually realized and freed the slave. That's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. We have to be smarter by analyzing and learning our history. It wasn't until the Civil War had started, until huge amounts of lives were lost, that reality hit some people. And they realized this war, even the most starch, free soul person that was lying to themselves, had to come to the conclusion that this is about slavery. This is about slavery. We forget that even until the 13th Amendment was passed, in states in the North as well as in the South, border states, slavery was still being continued. It was still being continued until the passing of that amendment. I'm going to deviate a little bit right here. And I'm going to talk about something, because this kind of goes into where we are right now. Let's come forward into current history, to our current situation. Tonight, we just had the President of the United States say that he hit Iran. He hit Iran. And what happens when we have leadership that is not intrinsically knowledgeable, nor wants to be knowledgeable about what they're doing? We fall into situations of war. We fall into situations of war and mass casualties. The lives lost in the Civil War could have been prevented, but many people were fighting under a false illusion of dominance, of right to do. And that's what we repeat these things in history. I spent 3 years of my life in the Gulf, over in the Gulf, in Bahrain. I am considered a SME on Iranian culture and on their military. And I'm going to tell you from an educated, knowledgeable point, what was done tonight or today was foolery. We put military personnel in danger. We put Americans in that region in danger. There are Americans in range of Iranian missiles at places like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. And when we make strikes or we do things based on no knowledge of history, tactic, force, things are going to go bad. I pray tonight for all of my brothers and sisters in the military. I pray tonight for those carrier strike groups in the Gulf. I've said for many years that the goal of countries like Iran is not that they can challenge our military, but that they can hurt it. Missiles being launched onto our personnel We are an effective military. Don't get me wrong. But mistakes can happen. And things can go bad. And I will tell you from experience, this idea of war has been under the mindset of many a president over the last 20-something years. But they never pushed that button because they understood the danger. How does that relate to what we're talking about tonight? Because decisions are made that affect the whole. Decisions are made that in the Civil War cost hundreds of thousands of lives that were preventable. But because people with no knowledge, basing their knowledge on feeling, not logic, made a decision. And what happens after that will affect the whole, this entire country. Pray for your service members tonight. Pray for those who are over there in harm's way, who haven't had the chance to evacuate. The families that are sitting right across the Gulf from Iran, from Iranian ships that are out there. People have this idea that these countries are small, really small, and that they don't have a military or the capability to withstand us. But if you will listen tonight and understand something about history, it's not just the ability to harm you, or let me clarify that, to destroy you. It's just that I affected you in some way. I pray for those folks tonight. And I wanted to segue into that for a moment so that we understand the danger. We understand the danger. I don't know what that means, but God bless you for joining us. Rock that bill or 8, okay? It's a troubling thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's a troubling thing. And my wife called me. I was out, and as I said, I was busy tonight, and told me that, and it really bothered me. And here we are, repeating horrible points in history unnecessarily. Getting back to what I was talking with you all about with emancipation and how that works. As I said, many slaves were not freed until the 13th Amendment passed. And even when there was liberation, there was still hindrance to treating Black people as equal. And so there was a fight for slaves, former slaves, to be respected and to be put into positions where they could be utilized in society. In certain places like South Carolina, the Carolinas, we saw that. We saw former slaves going into political life. But it was a push. The other thing that people don't talk about when it comes down to this issue is Black people taking it upon themselves to liberate themselves. Black folks escaped, ran away. They did things to stop the Civil War, to end the violence that was a result of these stupid decisions. You can see reports in the Confederate armies, reports that were going through who they were afraid. Because as the Union Army came through during the Civil War, Black folks escaped. They left. They left the plantations. When the men were being sent to go fight on the lines for the Confederacy, they refused to work. They uprose. They took over the plantations. And the reports that were going back and forth through the Confederacy said, hey, they're deserting by the thousands. They tried to send details to try to enforce, but they couldn't. You can't fight that war on two fronts. And so, as W.E.B. Du Bois wrote in his book on Reconstruction, Black people themselves, the slaves themselves, they decided that they would be free. They decided that we are done. We're not going to follow the mentality of politicians, both on the Republican and the Democratic side, who said this is a white man's government. This is a white man's country. They decided freedom. They was going to get it themselves. They got their freedom with that, as Frederick Douglass said, start playing with my feet. I'm out of here. I'm not going to wait for you. We have to stop with the lies. One of the major things I want you guys to know tonight is that when we talk about Juneteenth, revisionist history, all of this, even with the push of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, it did not come without challenge. Andrew Johnson, the man who came into office after Lincoln was assassinated, was vice president, he undermined all of these things. He was the one who offered forgiveness to those who had seceded. He also was quoted, during the time of Reconstruction, that this is a country for white men. But he was a Republican. And it wasn't until the election of Ulysses S. Grant, which I've talked about before, that protection was given to Blacks throughout the country in the form of military. Force had to be used. The question has always been, should Lincoln have told a different VP? But let's remember, Lincoln was trying to compromise. He chose Andrew Johnson as his vice president to solicit support from the border states, the border areas, which were still using slavery. That's what he did. Emancipation did not free those people. As a matter of fact, it makes a very, very clear example that they were not free. So the lie on that is deep and profound. And something that when you hear it, challenge it. Challenge it. It ignores the fact that by the compromise in 1877, right, with Rutherford B. Hayes, that the compromise that removed federal troops from the South and allowed Jim Crow to come in, and the oppression and the lynching of Blacks for the next 100 years, was all designed again based on Republican compromise and Democratic racist belief. We don't have to specify it as a party to know that the mentality was the same. We know that in the late 1800s that they got disinterested with the idea of racial equality. That's why the Compromise of 1877 happened. That's why it happened. And what arose was an oppressive state of lynching, murder, and killing again. And on the Black folks side, this was the debate between Booker T. Washington and people like W.E.B. Du Bois, who said that Black people needed to take a different path, educate themselves, go to school, go to college, or Booker T. Washington's idea of being a service to white people, and then they would respect you enough to allow you to be equal to them. Because even though there was no slavery, there was still an inequality, both Democratic and Republican, if you want to go by sectarian politics. But that's what it was. And even when we got down to the New Deal, even by the time we got to FDR in the 30s and the 40s, we still saw a segregated mentality. The New Deal did not help Black people, not as much as it helped white people. And when whites were getting economic relief from New Deal policies, Blacks were still being treated unfairly by both parties, Democratic and Republican, in the era of civil rights. So they missed out and they weren't giving things. Woodrow Wilson, who FDR served as the Secretary of the Navy for, was one of the most racist presidents we've ever had. He segregated the military. He segregated the government. And he did all of these things under the guise of saying that this was a mistake, the lost cause narrative. But yet they will sit here and tell us all of these lunatic things about how different parties were responsible. No. Racism was the law of the land. Even after slavery, for the better part of 100 years. And even today, if we are honest. Tina, it's rather annoying when people say, I'm not my ancestors, as if Black people were weak and intolerant of injustice before the generation. Yeah, and I agree. And it is one of the most annoying things to me, too, to see that, because it discredits the fact of how they got their own freedom, how they made it possible, serving in the military, rebelling against their masters, running away, facing certain death, beatings, rapings. But they did it. A man named William Henry Singleton of North Carolina was quoted saying, I ran away 3 times. Each time I was caught and beaten severely, but I never gave up. And when I finally escaped, I reached the Union lines and I joined the Army. And when I served, I knew I was free. We act as if our ancestors were weak, but they weren't. They weren't. We forget that there were people on the Republican side, like the Ohio's governor, David Todd, who bluntly said that this was a theme here. Do you know that this is a white man's government? To enlist a Negro soldier would be to drive every white man out of the service. That's what he said. It was an echo of white supremacy. And whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, this was a belief. And so when we think about these things as I saw, what's the guy, Charlie Kirk and different folks out here making these statements. And I saw a girl break it down. Oh, you know, the reason behind Juneteenth, she knew everything about Juneteenth except for why it's important. She was in her own echo chamber, listening only to her voice coming back to her, not realizing, not using the discretion or the knowledge or the logic to say, oh, they want to celebrate that because these Black folks were driven down to Texas, driven down to the southern parts of the country and denied freedom when everybody else was free to utilize their labor and to enrich those people, the enrichment of the people who held them captive. And even when they were freed, even when they were told by Granger that they were freed, were told to stay there and finish the crop. Don't loiter, don't walk away, don't be found somewhere, finish the crop, do the honorable thing and finish the crop. Go read that, go read that general order. That's what was said. So when you hear Republicans say, we freed the slaves in 1865, that was us. It's true in how it was done by a party who pushed it, but not in context. It's false. It's only true if you shut it out and you shut out facts and you ignore facts. Now, then we talk about the flip to flop, right? The Republicans of Lincoln's time and Democrats of Lincoln's time, and the Republicans and Democrats of, say, Reagan and Trump's time. Those are two different things. Today, we see people in the Republican side predominantly downplaying race, banning books, banning teaching of Black history, mocking Juneteenth. See the video of the woman at the auto store, and people are laughing at Juneteenth. But let's not forget that there are still people on the other side of the aisle too, who just because they seem to support you don't mean they see you as equal. We look at how the disproportionate amount of people of color are in places of government and power over those who are white. And so we just have to understand the truth of that. Because even if they support you, like I'm sure Granger supported the idea of having those slaves in Texas freed, they still wanted one more crop. And the other part that's left out of that is that when some freedmen still tried to leave because they were free, they were killed. That's not reported. That's not discussed. And it's not discussed because people want to lie. They want a revision. They don't want to tell the truth. But that's the truth. People were supposed to be free. We're still being locked up. We're still being forced to finish a crop. Finish what you're doing here. All of that happened under the parties of Lincoln, and also with those who sat across the aisle also. But we lie and we tell ourselves these false narratives. I guess we do it to make ourselves feel better. Some of us want to not have our feelings hurt. But I'm one of those who believes that we should commemorate Juneteenth just as well as those who try to make this argument between the 4th of July and Juneteenth. Both should be commemorated. Why? Because there would be no freedom in 1776 without the service of blacks, people of color. I was telling my son the other day that during the revolution before 1776, there was an issue with the patriots over here who were violent, who were tarring and feathering, burning, whipping, harming people in order to protest. And why the first amendment of the Constitution says that you have the right to peacefully protest, and how the founding fathers strategically put peacefully in there because they knew that in the independence of this country, there had been violence. Boston Tea Party is a form of violence. You destroyed property. The Boston Massacre was, again, violence. People were shot because the British soldiers said they came at them with ice and threw ice at them and attacked them with sticks. Crispin Attucks, the black man who was killed during that time, the actual statement from the British soldier says a large black or large Negro ran at me. He was one of the first to be shot simply because he was running toward him and he was a large Negro. We don't seem to understand that, as I keep telling people, prioritize your history, learn your history, know who you are. Tina, the thing about those past half truths is the very facts which seem to be dismissed and distorted, they come back to bite us in the future reenactments when we repeat the past as a new reality. And that is the truth. You vote in these strong men, or people who you think are strong men, who only want power, only seek authority, and they do ignorant things because they don't have the capacity to empathize. And as a course I was looking at the other day, have an emotional intelligence to listen to what is the reality of the moment. Instead, what we're seeing a lot right now is race baiting, not just black people, race baiting, culture baiting. And even in the black community, even those people who by biology could be seen as black, like the Candace Owens and different other black conservatives who say, well, I'll only celebrate July 4th and ignore the things that happened with their own ancestors. Or Trump, who, when Juneteenth was made into a holiday, say, oh, I made Juneteenth very, very famous. This arrogance. This is what this is. Black people in this country, our ancestors were not weak. They were knowledgeable. They created holidays like Memorial Day. That was a black people who wanted to honor those Union soldiers and black soldiers who had died in service to this country at a Confederate prison camp. W.E.B. Du Bois in his book talks about the gift of black folks. And one of the things that black folks gifted America with is this sense of democracy. See, before, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Before the freeing of black people, Democracy was seen as something just in a way that British royalty saw it. The wealthy, the people who had power, the people who had knowledge, they were given power. And it was democratic for them to rule over the minions, over the workers, white, black, or whatever. It was on them to lead the country. This is why you have the Electoral College and why the Constitution was written in the way that it was. It was designed so that the elite, the knowledgeable, the affluent, had a greater say. But the gift of Black folks, as Dr. Du Bois said, was that upon the freeing of the Black people, democracy started to be seen differently. The Constitution wrote it differently. It meant that everybody should be treated equally and fairly, regardless of their color, sex, creed. That was a difference. That was written in the Constitution to not only benefit the freed, the former slave, but every American that came after. That was the gift. The gift of democracy that has now inspired everyone all over the world. And now we're having a revision of it. We're losing our sense of understanding what democracy really means. The GOP party, the Republican Party today, is not the same party of Lincoln. That flip-flopped many times. But rather that they claim it or not, let's not ignore the history of racism that both parties allowed to fester and grow in this country. Democrats as well as Republicans allowed Jim Crow, supported Jim Crow, enforced Jim Crow. Democrats and Republicans who are white, who can say that they support you and that they're an ally, can still walk out in a neighborhood, an affluent neighborhood, and not be stopped based on the color of their skin. Not be thrown to the ground when they ask a question. Not have their name given a general lease like Jose. Not be called boy. Not be demeaned. Not be challenged. Not be followed as they walk into a store. They could be your ally, but they have no real skin in the game. Unless they choose to. Those who went on the freedom rides and were almost beat to death. Those white Americans who put their lives in danger. Those people who stand up every day and say, no, this is wrong, because they have skin in the game. Those people who are interracially married, like my grandma, who just passed, who, regardless, never treated me, never treated my family as if we were something other. Hugged me tightly every time she saw me and let me know she had my back. See, that stake in the game is important. That empathy, that understanding, that emotional intelligence, that desire, that willingness to listen and to be a part, to not make excuses, to not feel guilty for things that you can't change in the past, but you can guarantee will not be repeated in the future. That's what we need right now. I miss my family. I miss my grandparents. And I thank God that I was raised at a time where I could see that diversity in my family, that love, that care, that honor. You got so many people out here claiming to be Christians on both the Republican and the Democrat side, since we're talking about politics tonight. But their idea of Christianity loses. The folks who are standing out here screaming and hollering about separation and division. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not about division. It is a desire that everybody should be treated equally. The same people that sit there and say, by the content of their character, get angry every time a Black person or a person of color is hired into a position, it earns a degree, and then they lie and say it was given to them, when they don't consider how hard it is. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, to endure, to fight through those lessons, to fight through the microaggressions of your professors and your teachers, your managers, your supervisors, to obtain some level of proficiency and then mastery. And then once you master something, to then still feel oppressed and held down because people don't want to accept the fact that you earned it. To be one of the smartest people to walk in the room on that particular area of expertise and be pushed to the back seat so that someone's idea of what a knowledgeable person should look like is given a platform. To be let go from a position and told that you're not worthy, even though you know and they know how much work and emphasis you put into what you were doing. Equality is what Dr. King talked about. Equality means that everybody is given a fair stake at what they do. Equality is not someone telling you you don't deserve it because they see the color of your skin or where you came from or your religion. That's bigotry. That's xenophobia. That's hatred. And these same people will tell you that they're Christians. Jesus was knowledgeable. Jesus could have easily gone to the temple and sat and talked with the Sadducees and the Pharisees. He could have sat and talked with the most knowledgeable people of the day. But that's not what the Bible or the gospel show us. Jesus went out amongst the people. He went out to the people because that is where the message and the knowledge and the understanding has to be learned. Not in the arrogant idea, narcissistic idea of intelligence and power. Tita, we need to get back to loving each other and being united in the advancement of technology and art and agriculture as individuals who are united despite individually. Well, the thing is, If we stop lying to each other, if we stop making it seem as if everybody doesn't have a right to be treated fairly, if we do that, we could do better. We could see each other. Some of us, not all of us. I'm under the belief that we will never get to a point. No, I didn't. I just answered the last one that you just posted. But that's the thing. That's the thing. That loving each other is important. Juneteenth is a day of memory. It's a day of commemoration, a day that we are supposed to look back and think about justice, humanity, joy, unity, the desire for people to be treated with empathy and love and caring and respect. But unfortunately, that is not what happens. People use it as a division and divisiveness. And as we close this evening, I want to say to you, I challenge you, dig deeper. Learn your history. Learn who you are. Learn where you are. Go read your Constitution. Learn it. Know what your rights are. Know what can and cannot be done by your government. Don't co-sign ignorance because of someone just like me here on this podcast. Test your facts. I tell you all every time to test your facts, to make sure that your facts are understood, recognized. Know who stood in your way. Know who supported you. I call this the Black History Interactive, but Black history is American history. It is world history. It is a history we need to embrace and keep alive. Stop letting everybody write it for you or rewrite it for you. Read it for yourself. Go and look up the people who I talked about on this program tonight. Go look up those individuals who put their lives on the line. Go look up that quote by William Henry Singleton. Go look up the argument between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Go look and see what the Republican Party of the day, of Lincoln's day, were actually saying. Go look and see what the Dixiecrats were saying. Remember the ministers who told folks, right, that told the free folks in the North. I posted this before, maybe I'll post it again on the Erudition page, who told these people to go back to slavery. And if you weren't enslaved, go to slavery, because the Union is more important than your freedom. Preachers in the North on record saying this. But we have to understand that the lies that we're told, the things we have been told, they're not true, a lot of them. And the only way for you to know that is to go and pull up your history for yourself. Check your facts for yourself. Because if you do that, I guarantee you, you will find a lot of the things that I'm talking about, that I'm going into tonight, are important and need to be talked about. Before I sign off here tonight, I'm going to say something. I am not happy with the fact I'm trying very hard to help us all learn and to teach and to grow. And a lot of times, it is difficult. It is very difficult because a lot of people fight me on every step. Over the last couple of days, I issued a challenge. I issued a quiz. I'm going to issue the other one tonight. And the quiz was for children between the ages of 5 to 10 years old, I believe. And what I wanted us to do, it's easy, it's accessible, it's free for you on Google. The link, I will make sure that the link is in our program here. But what I wanted you to do was to go and challenge what is being taught to your children, ladies and gentlemen. Challenge what they're being taught in history. It's not a pass or fail. This was not to demonize anyone. But what this was supposed to do, and the reason that I initiated this, and I'm sharing this in our program here tonight, in our chat, the reason why I created this on Google was because I want you to judge what your kids are learning on Black history. At this time where Black history is being denied across the board, a quiz like this is important. It's important. It's just a survey. It's a Black History Awareness Survey. I'm going to try to share my screen so you can see it. And I want you to go there. I want you to, if you have children, you need to go there. I'm going to put another one in that's going to go from 10 to 16. But I want you to see this for what it is, the challenge that we're fighting right now. Go there. Go to Google Forms. Pull up the EruditionNetwork Black History Awareness Survey. It's very quick. You can sit there and do it with your child. It gives you what the score is. And they are very basic questions. There are only 10 questions. And there are yes or no answers to make it simple. But go there and participate in this. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your computer. Google is everywhere. And take this survey. Tonight, I'm going to put on the 10 to 16-year-olds. So maybe you have older children. But you can also give this particular quiz to your older children. And maybe it'll also identify to you maybe things that you don't remember, that you don't know. I say all the time, let's grow together. Let's do that. Don't ignore these surveys and these challenges out of some kind of fear. We need all the knowledge we can get right now. I'm getting ready to get out of here, but I want to close again by saying, Lord, please watch over our people, our brothers and sisters, all of the human beings in the Gulf tonight. Let's have empathy and prayer for those who are in harm's way. Because sometimes, majority of the times, missiles don't have a care who they hit trying to reach a target. A bearing launch only missile goes down the bearing. And it's going to hit whatever is in that area. Watch over our people out to sea, our ships, our military folks, our civilians who are sitting over in these areas. Protect them. Let calmer heads prevail, better hearts feel what needs to be done. I have spent a great deal of my life studying in that area of the world. And it breaks my heart that we are doing what we're doing for the hubris of some people. And all we can do is pray. All we can do is pray. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you for all of you who are in the chat, whether you told us you were in the chat or not. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm always appreciative of your time. I know we were late tonight. It's very late for some of you. If you watch the replay of this on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, hey, still feel free to leave comments, and we will definitely reply to you. Join Tina on Monday. She will be on for Joint Living, God willing. If things goes well, she will be on. Join me again next week as we do another interactive. I will let you know whether it will be on Thursday or whether it will be on Saturday. Hopefully we will not be as late as we were today. But I definitely want you to join us. Share this episode. Share the clips that we put out. I put clips out of these episodes immediately after both me and Tina's episodes. Go out there, look at those clips, share them on your social media, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, and let people know about the Erudition Network and be informed. Lastly, before I leave, my prayer out to my family. Congratulations to my mother-in-law and my father-in-law on renewing their vows today. Mama Marie and Papa George, thank you all for letting us see, what it means to stay married that long, even though I think me and Tina have been married longer, but there's no bragging. But but I just thank God. And then lastly, I extend my prayers and condolences out to the rest of my family on the loss of my grandmother, who was buried yesterday. And knowing that she lived a full life and is in a better place. And I love you, Grandma Donna. I love you. I love you. I love you. Say hi to Granddad for me. I'm going to get out of here. If you want to support the Erudition Network, you can do that through our Cash App that has been streaming across the bottom. Anything and everything that you do helps us to provide this program and to buy the equipment and things that we need for this program to teach you and to show you and to grow your knowledge. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be blessed, be safe, have a great rest of your weekend. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thank you. Bye.